Hello, everyone, and welcome again from Nearly Enough Dice podcast here at Compulsion. I have two wonderful people in front of me. I'm not going to steal any of their thunder, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And if you could, for our wonderful listeners and viewers, tell us exactly what you do.
My name is Martha, and this is Sandy, my colleague. We set up a charity called Pass It On 10 years ago this year. And what we do is we adapt donated computers for people with disabilities. So we get people to give us their old computers when they upgrade, and we basically build them to suit the individual needs of people of all ages who can't access what's publicly available. So basically, if they can't go into the library and they can't just use what's there easily, they're eligible for our service. And so we work with 4-year-olds, we work with 90
83.
something, 83-year-olds,
83-year-old.
and we work with people with learning disabilities, physical disabilities, people who have chronic illnesses, people with severe mental health problems. So we never know what we're getting next, but it's still exciting.
Okay, guys, that's pretty amazing. A decade, wow! And Compulsion, this you're the charity for Compulsion this year. So let's just get a rough idea of what. How did you get in touch with Compulsion? Did Compulsion get in touch with you, or how did this all come about?
Well, we're very fortunate in that we had a volunteer who worked with us before who is involved with compulsion, stop it. Um, that's Kat, and she got in touch with us and said, look, there is an opportunity for you to be the chosen charity for compulsion, and we said, for what? And she explained, and we've come along today, and it's amazing. I love this place. I think it is absolutely fantastic. It's so well run, so many happy people here enjoying themselves, and hopefully, so many happy people are going to come to the auction this evening and support us.
And it's really lovely for us because we're tiny. We have 1.5 members of staff, and we're based in my mother's back garden, literally.
We do
Um,
have over 30 volunteers, but one that have paid members of staff.
Yeah. So yeah, every penny just will make a significant difference to us, and we run ourselves as cheaply as we possibly can, but it really does make a difference to us. So it's great.
We receive no statutory funding, nothing from the government or from council or anything, so we do rely on donations, and we have sales of surplus equipment each month on the first Saturday of each month. We also have a web shop which you can get to from our website at passitoncomputers.co.uk. And anybody that goes and shops from there, we get a commission. It doesn't affect their shopping, but we get a commission, so they're supporting us just by shopping through that.
And there are links to, I mean, literally hundreds of websites. So from Amazon to Play to Boots to airlines to anything, you can almost buy anything through. So it's great. So we get some money from that,
Yep.
and we apply for grants and get some grant funding.
But as you can imagine, in this financial situation that we're in, grants are becoming harder and harder to apply for. The pot of money is getting smaller, and there's more people looking for it. So being picked for an event like this was just a fantastic bolt out of the blue. It's great.
So let's go into a bit of detail here to explain. You obviously are getting computers for people who need them and making sure that they get them. How obviously you must get these computers from somewhere. If I say have a backyard full of old PCs and I've just upgraded and I don't really want to bother of selling it, could I just pass it to you guys and you can make something miracle happen for someone else?
You can, but we're a bit fussy.
Only
So you need to
from the
get in
point of
touch
view of
with us
space.
first. So yeah, and it's to do with, there's so much out there now that we actually only take things up to 3 years old.
Okay.
Because except for laptops, we do take slightly older laptops because we get fewer and they're harder to, cannibalize basically with each other because they tend to be a bit more specific. Um, but yeah, so we tend to take things up to about 3 years old, apart from we'll take monitors and we'll take any colour printers as long as they're properly working, then yeah, that's great.
We don't unfortunately take CRT monitors anymore. It got to the point where we were playing Ultimate Jenga with them. Yeah,
Extreme Jenga and
extreme
quite
Jenga,
quite
yeah.
dangerous Jenga sometimes.
But there are a lot more flat screens that have become available, and when you're working, especially when you're working with younger people, if it looks like it's a reasonably good machine with a flat screen monitor, they will use it. If it's got a big clunky CRT, they want something that looks like what their pals have got.
Yeah, and that's fair enough.
Yeah, you can
Yep.
understand that, definitely. Okay, so where will if I'm okay? I don't have any old PCs, let's say. I don't have any old laptops, and at the moment I'm not in a position to do any shopping. Can I donate straight to you guys? Can I just go on your website and just donate straight away?
There's a link to the Charities Aid Foundation page, which our charity has, and you can make secure donations through that. So you can do it online, or obviously we still take checks quite happily. So yeah, we're
Yeah,
absolutely.
we're
But
old fashioned that
also
way.
in terms of selling equipment, the machines really are cheap as well. So we try and market those to people on low incomes, to students, to people who are unemployed. Um,
Also to other charities.
yeah,
Um,
and small
whose,
businesses.
yeah, the pot of money, social enterprises, their pot of money is not great for IT, but they can come to us and they can get reasonably priced machines, which will help it stretch a bit further.
But I mean, our basic system is how much nowadays?
For a complete system, we do them from £60, and that's with Windows XP and all software, antivirus, software.
£60 for
So it's a base unit and flat screen monitor and keyboard, mouse, cables, everything.
Yeah,
everything you need to just basically just start up and get going.
plug it
Yeah.
in, you're online. Yeah.
And I guess this is almost the impossible question. Do you have any idea of how many people you've helped now? I mean, it's been a decade, so that's quite a lot.
It is. I mean, it's funny because we don't work with as many people as people expect because our system is our service is so intensive. Because what we've discovered was you can't just go and hand a computer over to somebody. There was a charity who had been doing something like that with the best intentions before we started, but our first client was somebody who'd been given a computer by them. She could only move her head, and she had a standard PC, and it was her doorstop basically. And we went in and we're like, okay, that's no use. So then you have to set up a system where you're putting special software in place, you're putting special things so somebody can access it by hitting a switch with any part of their body that they can move. So somebody might use their head, they might suck or blow, they might blink, they might be able to kick it, they might, elbow it, anything. So we have to set that up and then set up the specific software, and that is very, very labor intensive. So our current target is a minimum of 25 clients in a year. So that's how many of those clients we work with, but then we obviously sell stuff on and do things that way as well. But the other aspect of our work is we have, as well as volunteers, we have people on work placements. So people with extra support needs who maybe would find it hard to get work experience anywhere else. So quite a lot of people with maybe Asperger's, autism. We've got a couple of people who've had strokes who, one guy really very young had a stroke and his speech is very impaired in one hand, but he was a computer person before. And these people come in, we have sort of 2 days in the week when we're open for volunteers and work placement people, and they come and just get experience of being in a very, very laid back, unusual workplace, but still a workplace, and the opportunity to
And
try
it's a
skills
supported
out.
environment, and it's as much about socialising as well
Yeah.
because they're working with other people, they're working together on machines and stuff like
And
that.
if I
It's great.
can tell you like one little case study, we had a guy who came on a work placement who was 16 when he came to us, and he'd been really badly bullied at school, and his mother died when he was very young, and he literally used to get beaten up almost every day. And he had said he was never going near any education ever again. He just was like not going to step foot. And when he first came to us, he wouldn't speak, he wouldn't take his coat off,
He had an anorak
he
zipped
wouldn't
up to there.
eat in front of us, he wouldn't do anything, and it took months. And then he would swear a bit,
He would swear a
but
lot.
nothing else.
We had to invent a swear word for him.
Yeah,
Flamingo.
flamingo.
Yeah.
We figured that would
He
work,
was allowed to use flamingo.
but
There were
nothing
a
else.
lot of flamingos.
And then, gradually he would take a sandwich when we were buying ours, and then he offered one day to go and buy the sandwiches, and the cook came undone a little bit. And after about a year and a half, with another volunteer, we managed to give him enough support to go and do a free course at the volunteer centre. And he was so scared, and I went and chatted to the tutor beforehand and said, this is his situation, with his permission. If he wants to leave, he may not contribute at all, he may not be able to speak. If he wants to leave, that's fine, we expect that might happen, but he's willing to give it a go. And he did 3 full days on the trot in this course, came back absolutely glowing. And then about a year after that, 2 years after that, something like that,
Yeah, it's
he
about a year.
said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to stop volunteering for you." And we were like, "Oh, okay, fair enough. You've been coming for years." And he said, "I'm going to college." And he went to college and did 2 years
Yeah.
of computing course at college. And then he came back and
Came
said,
back. Yeah.
"Can I volunteer for you?" So he's still coming, which is great. So it's amazing. And that was not an intended consequence of what we were doing. And it's just lovely to see those kind of developments. And
Our main issue with volunteers is they never leave, um, which means that it's difficult to find places for other
yeah.
people who want to come in and get a
We
volunteering
have a waiting
opportunity.
list, which is amazing. So
How long's the waiting list then?
it varies. It depends if we can get rid of anybody. We just don't have the
We don't
capacity,
actively get rid
unfortunately.
of
No.
people, but sometimes it's time for somebody to move on and do
Yeah.
something a bit
Yeah.
more,
And if we're
and
flexible
we can
because
move
we
on that
don't,
way.
with this person that I've just told you about, if we'd said originally he was coming for 6 months, and if we'd said at the end of 6 months that's it, we wouldn't, none of that would have happened.
Yeah,
So we're really flexible with it, and it's
too
brilliant.
flexible sometimes.
Probably, but that's
But
nice.
hey,
Better that
it's
way.
what we are. It's how we do things.
And in terms of the difference it can make to our clients, I mean, I think, again, we have a story of somebody who was terminally ill and he was an asylum seeker. So he hadn't seen any of his family back home for 10 years.
His
And they,
children had never seen them.
no, and they couldn't afford to phone home because they couldn't even afford, we had to help them financially to get their internet set up because
Yeah,
they didn't have a bank
they couldn't
account.
have a bank account.
So none of the internet providers would take them on trust that they would pay a bill every month. It had to be done by direct debit, and they wouldn't.
So we paid it and they
Yeah,
paid us.
we did it that way around
Yeah.
for the first year, I think, and then it worked out. But anyway, before he died, we managed to set this person up with a system with Skype, and he was able to Skype home to his village. And his widow, after he died, told us that basically, at first there was one person, and then
Yeah.
he went, oh, it's Shahidi's there, and basically everybody from the
Suddenly the
village
whole room was filled with
was
people
just full
waving.
of people, and he had the chance to talk to and see people that he never ever thought he would be able to do that with
The
again.
kids got to speak to the grandparents for the first time.
Yeah.
It's great.
So, you never know what stories are going to come. We've had people write books on the computer we've
Yep.
given them and get them published. We've had people learn that they can use. We did have some touch screens for a little while and they were brilliant. And for people with autism, that's great because you don't have the extra dimension of the mouse is connected here and then it's doing something there. So, and we've had people who've used, now
We
got
had
a communication system basically because they learnt to be able to do stimulus response games on that.
yeah.
Um, there's just,
It was a young girl, wasn't it?
yeah.
They, the place where she was going to, they didn't think that she had the capability to learn shapes, colours, and stuff like that. But using this system, she was able. She's moved on, and she can pick out colours, she can pick out shapes, she can communicate, and speech and language therapists can build on that and start moving around from that point. So it's great.
She's now got an iPad.
Yep,
And
she has indeed.
she's off and running, so
We
it's
don't,
great.
but
No.
she has an iPad.
So yeah, and it's again we worked with a girl with autism who loved birdsong, and so I wrote a very simple kind of web page, if you like, but based on her computer, where it had pictures of birds, and if she clicked on that picture of a bird, she got the bird song. And when we delivered it, her mum said she's not going to come anywhere near while you're here, but if you show me what to do, then once you're not around, because she just won't cope with strangers.
She was dancing over in
She
the far
was. She was
corner of the
right
room.
at the back of the room, dancing round and round, picking things up, not doing. So I was showing her mum and her sister, and like after a couple of minutes, the dancing got a bit closer and a bit closer, and then by the end of it, she was right behind, looking over the chair, and we
Just
were
to
like,
see what was
"Wow,
going
she's here!" And you went back to see them, didn't you,
on. Yep.
recently? And
And she's doing fabulously well. She's moved on from that. They've got other grids in place, and it's why we do it. We saw a need, and we actually did it.
it's lovely because you just don't know what you're getting next, and it's. And what was it? You had somebody who had been a plane spotter in the war.
Yes, that was our 83-year-old. He wanted to know all about the information superhighway that he'd read so much about. So it was great. It was absolutely fabulous. He was an enthusiast, and he'd been a plane spotter in the Second World War. He'd been at Dunkirk, and literally he stood beside the guns and said, "Friend, enemy, enemy, friend," and he had that 2 seconds to do it. So we hunted for him, and we found an old photo archive, and managed to find this black and white photo of his ship in port. And he said, "That's me." And there was this young rating with his uniform on, and we tracked the name, and sure enough, it was him beside his ship. So we got that photo downloaded and printed for him. But we also managed to find a couple of his old shipmates who are now in America, and put them in contact through email and stuff. And it was just great. It's stories like that that keep us going.
And I think the key thing for us is it's like, we can all think we couldn't do without our computers now, and that's true. But actually, it's not only allowing people who otherwise couldn't afford it and who don't know about the adaptations that are possible. They often think, well, I can't use a standard keyboard, I can't use a standard mouse, therefore I can't use a computer. But the reality is there's a way around it. And they don't know that, and that stuff's expensive. But I think that what computers can give our clients is actually something more than any of us can benefit from, because it's like if we couldn't bank online, we can go to the bank. They can't easily. You know, if we can't shop online, we can go to the shops. They can't necessarily easily. we can maybe read easily, but for them having something read out. We had an
Well,
amazing girl who had face blindness. She'd had
yes.
meningitis as a child, very specific brain injury, which meant she couldn't recognize faces and she couldn't read, but she could see. And so she said, I'm really stuck until my husband comes home. I don't know what mail has come through the door. I have no idea what that is. And she showed us her wedding album.
And couldn't
And she said,
identify
well,
any of the
that's me
people in it.
because there's a white dress, but I don't know it's me. I can't see my own face. And so we set her up with a system where she could scan in her post or anything that came through the door or anything she wanted to read, and it would read it out to her.
It's
And
just
that's
a little bit of freedom. It's a bit of your life back,
independence.
control.
And again, another one. I mean, sorry, there's so many, but
Yeah.
we had another client who she's on her own and she has a son with quite severe autism. And she has a really, really severe visual impairment. And we were able to set her up with a system that will read it out to her, but also have everything in enormous yellow text on a black background. And she said, she couldn't read stuff that was sent from the school about her son, and he couldn't read it to her, and she had nobody else there to read it for her. And now
Yeah.
she can scan it in; it can be read out to her, or they can email her, and she can. And
And
she's on a committee now,
she's
isn't
on
she?
a
And,
committee for an action group as well, and they
so
email the files back and forward to her, so it's great. It
it's
is a
such a
huge thing.
variety. It's lovely.
I know. Go ahead.
I meant to do an interview here, and I'm gobsmacked. People seem to forget how much a gateway a computer can be, and how much freedom it can offer to an individual. And I'm on the verge of tears, people. So I'm so impressed with your work. I really hope you do really well at this convention, and we're really looking forward to hearing how you get on and looking to hear the final total. So thank you for your stories. Thank you for all the work that you do, especially from us here at the podcast. And we really look forward to hearing about you guys in the future. Definitely don't be strangers, okay?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.